everyone, it's Katie from Paradise Falls family. In this video we'll be continuing our Hong Kong series and part 2 of our time in the city. In our last video we started talking through our week in Hong Kong and our time at the Shangri-La Kowloon Hotel. In this video we'll continue looking at our time in the city, giving an overview of the rest of our week and some of the things we got up to, with lots of tips and pointers as usual. We'll follow up with a vlog next week on some of the more practical aspects of visiting Hong Kong as a young family, before we move on to our time in Macau and Disneyland, so make sure to subscribe to the channel to catch all of this. So continuing on from our last video, we were really enjoying our time in the city and enjoyed our first few days exploring. On our third full day, we were due to move hotels from the Shangri-La Kowloon to the Disneyland Hotel. But before we left and headed out to Disneyland, we wanted to spend another day in the city. Until this point, we hadn't really explored Hong Kong Island much at all, and one of the main sights to see in the city is Victoria Peak, so this was our main aim for the day. We were getting slightly better with the jet lag now and were up before 10 AM and got up and out for the day. We checked out, stored our luggage at reception and then jumped on the metro, as there's a station right outside the hotel, and caught it across to Central Station. One of the classic things to do in Hong Kong is to ride the Ding Ding, which is an old overground double-decker tram that runs up and down Hong Kong Island. As we were exploring the island today, we wanted to include this and jumped on at the Pedder Street stop just outside of Central Station and stayed on for a few stops to Bank Street. You can get maps of the tram lines online, which helped us work out where to get on and off at, but it does need a bit of thought if you don't know the city. It's really easy to use though, you just hop on at the back and then pay using your Octopus card when you get off at the front. The trams are pretty small and cramped inside, but it is fun to ride, was only a couple of dollars and it saved our legs a little. Getting off at the Bank Street stop, you've got Statue Square on one side and the HSBC Bank building on the other. This is a landmark in the city and has famous lion statues outside, with a mini walk-through history of the bank on the ground floor. From here we were headed straight to the Peak Tram. It's a little hard to find your way as you have to cross the busy Garden Road, but we went up through the beautiful Cheung Kong Pork and over the bridge, and then it was just a short walk uphill to the tram terminal. We'd pre-booked tickets including Sky Terrace through Klook for about £40 for all 4 of us. I'll include a link in the description below this video. You can also pre-book on the Peak site if you want, or buy on the day. But Klook offered a flexible ticket, so we went for this. Our original plan was to head up later in the day to be up there for sunset and to see all the lights of the city. However, it didn't work out with everything we wanted to do, so we decided we'd head up earlier while we had the time. As it happened, the pay stations in the terminal were down, so there were massive queues if you didn't have a ticket already, so we were really glad that we had these pre-booked. The Peak Tram is probably the most iconic thing to do in Hong Kong, and so of course is really popular. The old tram takes you up to Victoria Peak, where there are incredible views over the city. The best seats are at the back, facing downhill, so you can see the view open out in front of you as you climb. But people queue for these seats and rush to grab them. We weren't up for this, so settled on any seat we could get, and even so, the views out of all of the windows across the city were amazing. It does get pretty steep, so it's a really cool experience, and it only lasts a few minutes as you climb up to the top. You exit the tram straight into the shop where you can pick up the usual souvenirs, and it has a little dining area with a few places to pick up snacks. We got some more tangaloo of course and then headed on up to the higher floors. There are various attractions up here but not that many places to eat, so we headed straight for Bubba Gump's before it got busy. We were here just before 12 and it was almost empty. It served Western food and had no wait, so was perfect for us with the kids. It also meant we got a table by the window and perhaps the best view we'd ever had for any meal, looking down over the beautiful city. It was absolutely brilliant, so we'd recommend coming here early and trying to snag one of these tables if you can. Because it was Western food and one of just a few places to eat up here, it was a little bit pricey at around 1,100 Hong Kong dollars or £110, so not too bad really. They turned tables around pretty quickly, so we were out by 1 and headed up to the top level, which is the Sky Terrace, and which you need an extra ticket for. This is the top outdoor viewing level and it's worth paying the extra for, given that you've come all of this way. The views across the city are fantastic, and just like all the pictures you'll have seen online. Again, it's fairly busy, but if you're patient, you can get all of the pictures you want. And then it was back down to the shopping centre, the Peak Galleria, that sits up top here. This is a fairly small shopping mall, enough to take a look, and the kids loved Sasa and the sweet shop here. There are a few walking trails if you want to take those in, but we joined the queue to get the tram back down. It was only a short wait, and again we couldn't get the front seat for the views on the way down, but it was still a really fun ride and we'd loved our little trip up to the peak. Next up was the Hong Kong Park, which begins basically right by the tram terminal. We didn't get to see much of it, just the tip really, but it's a lovely park, very nice landscaping, set on a hill with a playground, aviary, fountains and waterfalls. Set among the skyscrapers, you can get some brilliant photos, and we'd have liked to spend a bit more time here seeing the rest of the park, but we just had so much more that we still wanted to fit in, so we moved on. We headed back to Bank Street and jumped back on the Ding Ding to take us across the city a little. The Central Mid Level Escalators are also billed as another top thing to do in the city. These are basically massive outdoor escalators that take you up through a portion of the city and are a novel way to get about. The Pottinger Street stop seemed closest, so we got off here and then made the short walk to the escalators. There are periodic entries and exits, so you can hop on and off and explore the city. We stayed on a little to have a quick look, but we didn't want to go far, so didn't stay on too long. If you've got a bit more time, I can imagine it being a really fun way to explore the city. But we quickly moved on to the Manmo Temple, which was nearby. The temple here is one of the biggest in the city, and the pictures look brilliant, so we really wanted to take this in. The city here is a little less polished and touristy, so you're really in the old part of the city here. It's a little bit more gritty, but we always felt safe, and it was really cool to see a different part of Hong Kong. The temple itself was relatively small, but it was fascinating to look around, an incredibly beautiful building. By now, we'd done a lot of walking, so we're getting tired, and we're conscious of time with us needing to still move hotels later that day. So we jumped in a taxi, which only cost about £5, and it took us back towards Central Station and the IFC Mall. This sits above Central Station, and we thought we'd have a look around before heading back to the hotel. It's a fairly standard mall, and to be honest, it was really confusing to find your way around it with it being split into two halves. We didn't like it as much as Harbour City or K11, but it's still worth a look if you love shopping. We didn't spend long here, but we did stop by the supermarket. We were conscious that we'd need something to eat that evening when we arrived at Disneyland and our hotel. We also knew there wasn't any quick service restaurants at our hotel, so we decided we'd pick up a picnic so had something ready to eat when we arrived. However, we found groceries to be really expensive. For example, it was £10 for just a small block of cheese. I expect this was maybe because we were looking at some of the more Western food, but it's something to keep in mind. With our picnic ready, we jumped on the metro back to our hotel and picked up our luggage. The hotel called us a taxi and we were on our way. They do cram in luggage however it fits. including just leaving the boot partially open, but this seems to be standard here and everything arrived in one piece, so it was fine. The taxi ride took around 30 minutes and only cost $220, so around £22. It was pretty reasonable. We generally found taxis to be pretty cheap and very easy to get around in. We arrived at the hotel about 6 p.m. and had a wonderful welcome. We were staying at the Disneyland Hotel, their equivalent of the Grand Floridian in Orlando, and had booked using our Disney Vacation Club membership. I'll talk more about this and the hotel itself in a separate vlog, but the hotel is really wonderful. It has an amazing, beautiful lobby with the reception, shop and one of the restaurants just off here. The rooms were beautiful, tastefully Disney themed, and everything was top quality and in great condition. We just had a standard garden view room which came with 2 double beds, plenty of room for luggage and a nice big bathroom. It had a shower over the bath which was very nice and came with lots of nice free toiletries. There were also slippers and dressing gowns for us to use, and we were so comfortable here. We settled into the room, unpacked a little and ate our picnic. We'd also been given a sheet summarising all of the activities in the hotel during our stay. This was probably the most impressive range of resort activities we've seen at Disney. Loads of little extras for Halloween and other bits like Tai Chi with Mickey and themed craft and activities. We didn't plan to do too much this first evening, but had time for a quick stop by the shop, followed by some pool time, which was open until late. The swimming pool is a lovely area out the back of the hotel by the lake. Nice and big with loads of seating and lounges and a pretty decent slide and hot tub. It was really quiet this evening and it was like that every time we visited, so we all loved playing here and relaxing after a busy day. We were so excited for the next couple of days, having fun in the park, and I'll cover those later in the series in our Disney vlogs. We had 2 really fun days here and this took us right up to the end of our week and our last day. We were flying home very late that evening. In fact, it was 1 a.m. the next day, which meant we had basically a full day to enjoy Hong Kong. We'd only bought tickets for 2 days in the Disney park, so we decided to head back into the city to do some more bits that we hadn't gotten round to yet. We didn't want to exert ourselves too much given that we wouldn't be getting much sleep that evening, so we let ourselves lie in, packed up and checked out at around 11 a.m. We stored our luggage at reception and then went to get a free Disney bus to the metro station. This is right by the park entrance, so you basically just need to jump on the usual park hopper bus which comes on a really regular basis. The station is really nice and has its own Disney themed trains that run from here to connect to the main line. These are probably the fanciest trains we've ever been on, with Mickey shapes at the windows, lovely seats and Disney decorations dotted around the carriages. You have to change at Sunny Bay Station where you link onto the main MTR main line. The most direct route into the city is to get the direct train to Kowloon or Central. We opted for Kowloon, although this is actually a decent distance from where we'd previously been staying at the Shangri-La and is at the western side of Kowloon. They have the International Commerce Centre here, which includes the Elements Mall and Hong Kong's tallest building, which is home to the Sky 100 observation deck, and it's where we were headed. We wanted one last look out over the city and had heard good things about this, so decided we would try and fit it in. We hadn't pre-booked tickets, but it was pretty quiet and easy to walk up and buy tickets and then head straight up. Tickets came to around 500 Hong Kong dollars or £50, but we did get a discount as a portion of the viewing area was closed for a private event. From entry to exit, we were probably only up here for about half an hour, but it was well worth it with amazing views all across the city. It really is a beautiful city to look out over. There was loads of room up here, massive windows to get unobstructed views across the city, and some photo opportunities set up which the kids enjoyed. There's a cafe up here as well, and I think you can book afternoon tea too. And then there's a little shop that we got some souvenirs from. So everything you'd expect. As I said though, it was pretty quiet, so we were able to see everything at our own pace, and we soon headed back down. The entrance and exit to Sky 100 are within the Elements Mall, which is really cool in that it has different areas themed around the different elements. It's a fairly high-end mall though, so nothing we fancied this time, and we hopped in a taxi to take us to the Kowloon waterfront. This only took a couple of minutes, but would have taken a while to walk. We were dropped outside of the Harbour City Mall as we wanted to stop for lunch at the Cheesecake Factory. We wanted a good meal with it being a travel day, and went for something we knew we'd love. We had a great lunch before we headed back to Disney and the hotel. We could have spent a few more hours in the city here, but we wanted to take it easy before we travelled home. We spent the afternoon relaxing at the hotel, mainly in the swimming pool, but we had a go at the maze and explored the rest of the hotel, which was brilliant. For dinner, we booked in at the World of Colour restaurant at the Explorers Hotel. Hong Kong Disneyland has 3 hotels, all next door to each other. We did try and get the bus, but the service between hotels was a bit patchy, so we walked it in the end, and it only took 10 minutes. The Explorers Hotel was themed a lot like Animal Kingdom Lodge in Orlando, and looked a really fun place to stay. This is probably where we'd look to stay on our next visit, to try a different hotel. The World of Colour restaurant is on the lower floor and offers a range of dishes, including some Western food. We had a really nice meal here, although it was more on the expensive side, coming out at $1,300 or around £130. Our flight that evening was at around 1 AM, so we got a taxi from the hotel at 9:45 PM, and it didn't take long to get to the airport from here, so it's really very easy. I think it cost around $200 or £20. You could get the metro easily, but with all of our luggage, we decided a taxi was just more convenient. Hong Kong Airport was brilliant, easy to check in and get through security. There was a really cool kids play area that we spent some time in, and then we went on to get our usual plain snacks. This was a bit harder. The only shop we could find that was open was an automated one, where you had to register a card, then walk in, pick what you want, and you're billed automatically as you exit. This ended up being a bit tricky with the kids and all the bags, but we made it work in the end. And so with that, we were on our way back to England. The flight back with Cathay Pacific was very smooth, and the kids had a good sleep, so the jet lag when we got back wasn't bad at all. We all had an amazing time in Hong Kong. It far surpassed our expectations for a family holiday, and all 4 of us loved it here. There really is something for everyone. Everyone we met was so friendly, it's very affordable, easy to navigate, the food is great, very safe, and we'd recommend it to anyone. Before I finish the vlog, I'll touch on some of the other things that we didn't have time to do while we were here. Booking a trip like this, you only have so much time, so we did our research and then prioritised what we wanted to see and do. Inevitably, there were things we just didn't have time for, and I think we could have easily filled a good couple more days. We obviously don't have any video clips for these, so just enjoy the random clips. Starting with Kowloon, the main thing we intended to do and just ran out of time for was the ladies' market just north of the Temple Street Night Market in Mong Kok. This is another area of markets and cool streets to explore, including Sneaker Street and the Goldfish Market. We nearly squeezed this in on our last day as it's billed as one of the top things to do. Elsewhere in Kowloon, we already mentioned in our last vlog, but it would have been nice to spend more time on Nathan Road to enjoy this properly, and the nearby Kowloon Park, where we'd read they sometimes do Kung Fu. We also never got to go inside the Peninsula Hotel and would have loved to have had afternoon tea here. We seriously looked at this but decided against it due to the cost, but it would be a lovely treat another time. A bit further afield, we also read about the Siksik Yeng Wong Tai Sing Temple and the Chai Lin Nunnery, both of which looked really interesting. Something else we really wanted to do, but which didn't fit with our plans, was a dolphin spotting cruise. The waters here are home to a small group of pink dolphins. Hong Kong Dolphin Watch do run weekly cruises to see the dolphins, but these were only departing on Sunday mornings when we visited, which just wouldn't have worked for us, but it's worth checking out as it looks amazing. Over on Hong Kong Island, there was loads we didn't get to see. We basically only scratched the surface and really spent very little time here. We probably could have filled another day just in the city and would have loved to have ridden the Ding Ding all the way to the end of the line either way to see a bit more of the island. There are some nice beaches and towns dotted around the island that we'd read about that it also would have been really nice to see. And finally, the big one that we didn't have time for was Ocean Park. This sits on the far side of Hong Kong Island and is a massive theme park, zoo and aquarium that a lot of people say is even better than Disneyland. It does look amazing and we'd have loved to have spent a day here, so that's definitely on our list for our next visit. There's just so much to do in this amazing city. We can't wait to come back again and are already looking at when we can fit this in. So that brings us to the end of part 2 of our time in Hong Kong. In the next video, I'll talk through the more practical aspects of our trip and all the things we learnt as first time visitors, so subscribe to catch that, as we'll include loads of tips and useful information in that one. If there's anything you want us to include or anything you want to ask us about our trip, then let us know in the comments below. Likewise, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, as it really makes a big difference to the channel. Thank you all so much for watching.